applicant may receive as many of the people that have been accepting their seats.
And that would make sense, because then, you know, the attractiveness is.
How awesome.
The history of Arlington.
So if we go on to page, number 5, what is the percentage of attrition to total headcount in the past 3 to 5 years?
For those of us that are new, if you could go back, for those of us that are new to the board, is there a reason why those, you know, it's so high? Like you look at, you know, 8, 11, 8.
Well, that was before I got here, Ken.
That was when I arrived.
I realize that. Were there any other reasons other than Jess's being a teacher here that we can
I'm not even
attribute?
sure what you're calculating on number 5 there.
It's attrition. How many kids
How
left
many
during the
kids
year?
left?
No,
Yields.
it's how many people accepted who were
Signed
all.
up.
No, the attrition,
Also
the
attrition.
attrition, somebody
What it is.
asked what was the attrition percent of total headcount. So that's the percentage of withdrawal to the total headcount.
On a given year.
So it is
It's attrition.
okay. It is
Is it like once the school year starts? Or is this
Usually,
people that?
other than the new year, usually I do it at the end of the year. So I get the total headcount and then figure out what percent of withdrawal.
Because
I
I
mean,
still
that
think,
could
you know,
fluctuate
The
because
total amount of
the year
seats and then how many of those people would
Because
do
we've
over the
seen
course
it,
of the year?
like
And
in the
then that's
past, we
calculated.
had a large number of people that dropped between 8th and 9th grade. We had attrition rates up to 30% for that 8th, 9th transition. And then it's supposed to be a raw number.
But it's a percentage of the total school. So
Total school.
Because 8 had 30%, you average it at 1,000.
But what this is saying is that 10 kids, 1% is 10 kids for 2014, 2015.
No,
It's actually six so far.
This past year?
6 students.
So
Six-
since the beginning of the year.
6 students since the beginning of the
Yes.
school year have left the school.
Out of the 96.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. But you're not
Oh, but
talking
it's
about
not
attrition
In between the years.
in between school years.
Well, yes, because I don't have it right now.
But for the
But we
other,
don't have, but the numbers for the past years, do they reflect the?
Well, the next slide, you'll see the withdrawals by grade by year.
Okay.
Let's go to the next one. So that's 11% left during the year?
There was, I think that was when I first came, there were a lot of 8th and 9th graders that left that year.
During the year.
Yeah, during the year.
okay, so who's
And that hasn't really happened since.
So this is the difference between beginning of year and.
Let's let you guys proceed.
Yeah.
So this slide here is what Roger was getting at, as far as the drop-off in numbers.
Yeah.
And so this goes back to the 2007-2008 school year, and goes all the way to the bottom there of 2014-2015.
So for instance, on the last one on the bottom, for 2014-15, you can see to the right under total withdrawals, we've lost 6 so far. And the current head count is 996. So you're going to have the same information. 2013-14, we had, actually at the time that was done, there was 1,000 students, and we lost, again, I can't see that far,
65.
65. And that's pretty much how you read that.
So this number is going to go way up after the summer.
Usually,
Yeah, that's
It's
what
an
that
incomplete
was.
set.
So our.
So the previous years are, all
12 months.
are 12-month year, or 12-month reports.
Right.
And this one is
Only.
a year-to-date number.
year-to-date number.
That makes a lot more sense.
This one is year-to-date, that one is
Not
12.
just the 2014-15.
2014-15 is year-to-date. Every other one is complete. As you can see, like the 8th, 9th transition we used to suffer greatly. Well, I mean, we were, so you read it.
If you look at the 2010 for grade 7, you see that 268 number. And then the next year for grade 8, when they became 8th graders, it goes down to 254.
Yeah.
And you can see it
That's the bulk.
by
Right,
steps coming
you
down.
read the diagonal.
Right,
Oh, I see.
we have to go diagonal because they.
Yep, got it.
Okay,
But now, in from 13 to 14, we
All right.
see
Where's Mr.
there was no attrition between 8th and 9th grade.
Let's move this forward, this
Right,
discussion.
none at all.
And then we lost 14 last year.
I'd like to move this discussion forward so we can let them continue on with their briefing. But it would be great to get these numbers later, if you don't mind. If I-
You have a copy.
Oh, we got-
Everybody has a packet on their table.
Okay, thank you, Mary. All right, go right ahead.
Basically, the next, this slide is actually in your packet. You have a red line copy of the enrollment policy with changes. And you can see there's a lot of pink on here, a lot of red. But basically, I pulled out the major items that we had to change for this year. So you can see those separately. And then I have copies of a new policy with all the changes on it. And then this third Appendix A is actually the DOE's criteria, things we have to have in the policy. And what's done is, on the side, you can see the page and paragraph that can be found in the policy. So we're looking for approval for that. But basically, the biggest changes were, we had to add grade 9 this year and offer applications. I had to change, or we had to change the date to close the applications after January 1st, which normally they were always closed in December. So we had to extend that date. We have to extend to March 15th now, that we can't have the lottery past March 15th. So those were some of the big things.
Okay.
Also, the educational law changed. It used to be 603 1.06. And I believe they changed that whole thing, now it's become 105, so that was a big change that had to be adjusted in the policy. So a lot of that is what we see.
So what you have in front of you is the best way to kind of understand what's going on, and I know for the public it's harder, but the Appendix A, when you look at the red line policy, there was a recommendation of changes that had to take place, and these are recommendations from these. And so what we have done is we've taken the information that's here and we've made a reference to show how we've implemented those changes. And so when you look at the red line, what we've tried to do to have you be able to see what we're doing, what's happening, and what's being driven by DEES, we were able to provide comments as far as where it's happening within the policy itself. And as Donna is saying, there was some key changes that took place, but the first major change that took place was we now had to switch our policy and our practices to accepting 9th grade students. So that's the first key big change that happened. So that if a 9th grader is to leave during the school year, we're going to be required moving forward in current day to bring in a student for the 9th grade, 8th grade, 7th grade, and 6th grade, all to be the same way. Okay, and that has only been done for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade up to this school year. Okay, so that's a key change that we're seeing, and that's a requirement that's being put forward by the Department of Education.
Do we know what was driving that, Mike? Why the change?
I have an opinion as far as what's going on there. I think that the charter schools and the Department of Education are trying to work together, and they're trying to offer as many opportunities for students to be able to be exposed to charter school if they're choosing to do that. And by expanding it to the 9th grade, I believe that's offering more opportunities to students and a greater opportunity so that it's not as much of an impact for families if their child doesn't get into 6th grade, because they still have 3 more opportunities to get in. And I think that's been the major drive, and I think that the other reason behind that is so that it's not us being accused of limiting as far as how you take your students. And for example, if you were only taking for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, then you would really be able to limit down as far as your exposure to what public districts are being exposed to as far as kids coming in on a random day. Up to a certain point, we weren't exposed to that. Now we're starting to be exposed to that. And so the impacts of it as well.
Okay, thanks.
And are you all looking for approval of this policy change this evening?
We are.
Has it been through governance?
No.
Does it need to be approved this evening? and we're not going to run
I
the admission process.
think you go to the next one. I don't think we were aware, because we talked about this in the fall, so I apologize for that, but I don't think we were aware that this then has to go back through. This reflects pretty much everything that we talked about in the fall. Right when we presented, I was trying to think if anything else was added, other than the fact that they've added a definition for tuition cap and enrollment. But it can certainly go another month. It's not going to be something that would be whatever. I will say, though, it looks, just to make note as you go through it on, and you move into governance, what is up here, again, as Dawn said, looks like a lot. I will tell you, when push comes to shove, it's much smaller stuff, one of the things that Mike's pointed out. And I will also tell you, we've met probably a half a dozen times, the three of us over this. They have, in particular, Dawn, been incredibly methodical and precise in going through this. I assure you, every T is crossed in this and every I is dotted. She's done a terrific job of making sure that the documents she brings to us are accurate.
So what has happened is when they made the changes, we currently are working on the 603 CMR 105, and we're now supposed to be working towards CMR 603 106. And the 106 is all of the changes that are driving what is in front of you tonight.
And these are all changes to comply with regulations. None of this was our idea.
Some of this was feedback from things that have gone, that are difficult for families and communities to understand. So when you go to D11, D12, and D13, those are three definitions that were added to help to provide clarification, not only to the community, but also to the personnel, because there was definitely a need for clarification when it came to the tuition cap and enrollment cap and nutrition.
But there is nothing policy-wise in terms of any new procedures or protocols that have been implemented in this that have not come as directives from the Department of Ed.
That's fine.
The only thing that was changed, and that's what we took care of in the fall, was we provided some clarifying language. We also put that video that Donna did up on the website as well. So there are clarification pieces, but there is nothing substantial in terms of anything policy changed.
A lot of the smaller things you see is just changing the wording to mimic exactly what the DOE verbiage is. So that's why you see a lot of
waiting list.
Yeah, so keep it consistent.
Pauline, did you want to take this to governance? Or?
Yeah, I think we should.
We're just to explain, we had to vote on a few things in the past two meetings where we sort of got a first look at them, and the board sort of felt comfortable without having time to go through it, take it to governance. So we'll just take this policy through governance next month and then come back to the board with their recommendation for approval. But I don't anticipate any possibility that we ask any stupid questions.
So would you have us be meeting with governance? Is that what I mean?
I guess, Pauline, did you want them in governance to go through this with you?
I think
Or?
it'd be useful to, if there were any questions, to come up.
Yes. And our next governance meeting is scheduled for Monday, May 11th.
And if you can't be there, I think you can meet with the governance chair before then, walk her through it.
Can I ask a question? I know one of the things that has come up in Ed Committee is figuring out a way to track attrition of special ed students. Have you been able to do that, or do we have any numbers on that?
I could get that very easily, but I haven't tracked that in the past. I haven't really had that many.
But we have different information that I provided last year that I can provide again, as far as attrition numbers over time, as far as special ed, from 2000, as far back as we were reporting on the SIDS data. But I will tell you that as far as recent, the only movement we've had as far as special ed have been out of people moving out of state.
Maybe EdCom can send an email or see if we can get that, because I know that's come up a couple times. So, thanks.
I had the very last section talks about us using a third-party lottery person to pick these. Do we do that?
No, I think
It says a neutral.
It says a third party. But
Computer generated.
it's computer generated?
Computer generated.
That's how we do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I actually had to add that because in the past, they never had that, we could do an electronic lottery, although they knew that we did that.
Yeah.
And now they've got it into the policy, so
Okay.
we've added that in, as long as the neutral party is doing.
I see, push the start button, yeah. All right, thank you. Thank you very much, appreciate it.
So I'd just like to note, I was there at the lottery, and my parents, it was very well explained and very well done, and so congratulations. Thank you. Good job.
Again, I encourage anybody who has any confusion about it. Dawn put together a terrific PowerPoint with voiceover that you can access from the registrar's website, and I think that'll be helpful for folks. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Mary? Kim, would you mind just looking to see if we have any public comment?
I didn't sign my name up there, but I would like to just add a comment, if that's okay.
Empty otherwise?
Yeah.
Except the other one.
Okay. I just want to say one thing. I had a daughter who started AMSA in ninth grade, and she left your vice president of your National Honor Society, and she had wonderful teachers the whole way. I remember coming here, and the parents were very upset about the thought of any student coming in at any point in time, any attrition into AMSA would be wrong. So I just want to say, with the teachers that we have, and with the growth that AMSA offers and the challenge that they provide, she's thriving quite well in college too. So I just want people to know, I think there's a lot of anxiety in the community about kids coming in later on, and I think that AMSA has the skills and the capabilities to do that. So I just wanted to just put that out there for people to know that it shouldn't be such a fear factor. And I also just want to personally thank Kate Papazian, who is a wonderful person and teacher, and she challenges herself every day to learn more. She went to an ed camp recently in Grafton to learn new information about technology on her own time on a Saturday, and I think what she's putting in place for special ed students will be carried through with all our AMSA students in the future. I can see that in place. They do that in many other schools. I think what she's providing them is going to offer them access to the curriculum a lot easier and make things more efficient for the teachers, but those tools should really be in every student's hand. I know that's the direction we're going in, and I think Peg's a great person to help lead the way, so I just wanted to thank her too. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move into chair business. Tom and Elsa, do you have a collective bargaining test or something?
Tom, take it away.
We continue to meet with the union and their representatives. We had a meeting in April, we had another meeting scheduled in May, and we tentatively have a meeting in June on the calendar. We continue to make progress.
Okay. All right, thank you. And I think Rick had an update on culture management practices. He's not here.
Rick, apparently, he sent us a note saying that his flight just landed and was delayed significantly.
If it comes in, we may allow that.
Yeah.
And then we were going to talk about third-party surveyors for the employee and family surveys. Melissa's not here, and she's done that in the past. I think we're awfully close to getting a third-party survey.
I just saw it.
Yes, I can tell you that we have in fact signed the contract. They have a variety of questions, which I have now sent forward actually to you and Tommy, but it was this afternoon, so I didn't get a chance to see him yet. And one of the questions that they're asking is, at the teacher, are you looking for the teachers to be able to see some of the reports that are specific to their classroom? Or are you looking for school types of data reports? And that's important for them to determine as soon as possible, because that drives how they receive the data from us. Yeah. But we've signed the contract and it's good to go.
And so, who from the board should be driving any part of that? I'm not sure that we've thought about how we're going to execute. We've said that it needs to happen through a third-party surveyor to guarantee anonymity, baseline national data, and also get some of the experience of the surveyor and survey design. I don't think we've really talked about how are we going to do the work to make that happen. I'm not sure how much time does the third-party surveyor will give us in terms of wanting to do the work for free to design the survey?
I believe the design, I mean, I didn't know this, but I think that's included in all of the processes, my understanding. But again, Melissa was the point person for the communication.
Okay.
Melissa can't, I'm happy to do that as somebody who has taken student, parent, and faculty
Okay.
and board, I help working with faculty and
Having been in the demo, I think that the decision, the kinds of board level decisions to make would be, I'm not sure whether the teachers, so there's a safe way for teachers with their data, and no one else can see it.
Yeah.
So a decision is, as Marianne said, do we do that? And then there's a back and forth between customizing questions and using the canned questions. And using the canned questions is probably the way to go whenever you can, understanding that it's an investment because the tests, the surveys are fairly new, so they don't have a lot of data to compare with. We could have arguments about how much to individualize, because individualizing feels good now, it kills our ability to compare. Those are the kinds of conversations.
Okay. So we'll touch base with Melissa and have some news to report when you get timelines together and this out pretty quickly. All right. Accountability plan development, that was discussed in governance, I believe?
Yes, we talked about this in governance. So we have a accountability plan, which is the 5-year plan that measures how we're tackling our charter. And we have to put that in place. Our initial draft is due to be June 5th. That's the timeline that we're on. We talked that it's owned primarily by the school, developed primarily by the school. We talked with Sarah at governance about how to get the board involved, since the board technically owns the accountability plan. And our recommendation was that there's a task force created at the ED with well, actually I should say governance came up with one proposed structure, and then rather than I talked about it with Marianne and the revised structure, that it's primarily the ED and the team that she would select, but we would want 2 board members to be part of this as well, just in these discussions that lead up to writing the actual. It is different than it has been in the past. There has been a change from 5 years ago, so it's no longer this 80-page document that needs to be written. It is a pretty streamlined 1 to 2 page tables that are put in place, and so I think it's a different level of effort than was been required in the past, but we do think that we should have 2 board members. I'll throw that out there.
So this task force of the ED will meet between now and June 5th to come up with a draft. 2 or 3 meetings or work, sort of thing.
Yeah, probably more than 2 or 3 meetings.
Okay. So are we then looking for volunteers
So we are
to staff
looking for
that?
volunteers. I think that having 2 board members would be useful, just because we've had past, 1 board member is a lot for a person to do. Yeah, that's what he just said.
So I'm sorry, so the estimate is 10 or 12 hours worth of work in the next 4 weeks.
I'm not sure I mean, it's up to you, but I'm thinking about when a lot of the work would probably be able to get done is during the day of the department meetings. But the concept is that we work through your, the first suggestion was to have a few teachers on the committee. Then you have a few teachers. Like my concept was to think about having the department heads, because then the department heads can use their meetings to go back and ensure that all teachers get a voice and get a chance to participate in the process, and then it comes back to the department heads, and then everybody's reporting out. I think by doing it that way, you end up with, I hope, engaging and involving more of the teaching staff than just having a smaller number sitting around a table. And so when they come back to collaborate, then it would be helpful, I think, for board members as well.
So when are your department hearings?
Well, we're going to have to schedule separately because there are not nearly sufficient to get this work done by that time. So it's going to take additional planning to be done. But
That doesn't sound like the board needs to attend those initially. To the second affair, that's what you're suggesting.
I mean, I think it's up to them. I just think it's going to be hard to get all those people around the table at a time and all of that. And I think kind of charging the department heads with parts of the mission to then go back and engage their staff, maximize input, and then come back.
But it's the chair, it's the task force of the EB that's running it, so board members don't have to be here in person.
So it makes sense if I'm one of these people, right, because I'm on campus and I'm meeting, and then I can kind of fill a couple roles, is that?
I think that would be
Or is,
I don't know, I'm sort of thinking of the opposite.
oh, okay, oh, that's even better, I'll try like that.
Well, I mean, that I think, you know, I appreciate the volunteer, but I'm sort of thinking that in order for the sort of separation.
Oh, you need board members who are teachers. Right.
Right.
Good answer.
Separation of governance and action, I think would be better to make it work.
I would volunteer to go on.
Okay.
We have one. Jacob?
Maybe, what's Rick's order?
Rick?
Rich.
Okay, we'll find our next public.
Find our-
We've got 3 absentee board members. Okay. Anything else on accountability?
Michael.
All right, let's move to finance committee then.
Okay.
Thank you for putting on a big one.
So what we have in front of us, the first column that we see right here, 2013, 2014 actual, that will be July 1, 2013 through June 30, 2014. The first column represents, just for some historical purposes and comparative purposes. The next column represents our year-to-date, so July 1, 2014 through 3/31 of 2015. So these are our actual year-to-date numbers. The next column represents where we project we're going to end the year at based on the first 9 months of data that we've got out there. So July 1, 2014 through June 30, 2015. And so all comparisons after that are going to be between our forecast for the year ending June 30, 2015, and what we're talking about budgeting for next year. Again, tuition represents about 92% of the total revenue that we get in at the end of the day. We have no control over tuition. We cannot raise property taxes. We can't do a Prop 2.5 override or anything like that. It's strictly formula driven based on the kids that we get in and the districts that are sending them to us. Based on feedback that we got from DEAS, it was suggested that we budget at 1% this year, and that's what we've done. So for a 1% tuition increase is what we're looking at there. Next line just represents grants and donations. So we're at entitlement grants that we get from the state and the federal government based on the student population. And we also have what we can raise from fundraising is what that is. We're expecting lower grant revenue in the coming year, hence the change number there. Miscellaneous income, this basically represents the very little interest that we get on the cash that we hold, represents things like lost textbooks, just things like that that come in here. We basically budgeted that to be flat year over year. Nutrition income for the coming year, we've actually, our comment was wrong here in this box, but our nutrition income we're actually budgeting to be higher in the coming year than this year. We have the nutrition contract out for bid at this point in time. We believe that it will comply with the USDA requirements, which will then make us eligible for some reimbursement for the free and reduced lunch population, which will drive the nutrition income revenue up. That's the principal driver of the increase in nutritional income. I point out the nutrition income, you'll see that's pretty much balanced out by nutrition expenses down below. Same with student programs, athletic programs, and student transportation. Jess, you had a question?
Yeah, you just answered it.
Okay. Student program income, these are things, as you can see here in the note, things that come in through the student store, all the clubs, testing assessment charges that we have there, field trips, all things like that run through the student program income section, and then are offset on the student program expense section there. Athletic program income, just a modest increase there based on sports that we expect to be running in the coming year. On the student transportation income line, you see we're projecting a 17% increase. The busing contracts were rebid this year and came in substantially higher than they had been before. We bid the contracts 5 years ago, right? So we bid on a 3-year contract with 2 1-year renewals, and gas prices are obviously down, but they're actually up from where they were 5 years ago. And we have very little bargaining power. We only have 4 regional buses and buses for athletics, so we have very little bargaining power there, and the busing costs have gone up substantially. We just sent out the regional busing information that just went out to parents. Looking for people to come back and sign up for next year. We'll finalize those numbers, but right now this is the income that we're projecting to be getting back in as it relates to the regional buses. So that number is up. We had to raise the regional busing rate significantly to cover the increase in rates. The next 2 line items here, you'll see a fund transfer income, and then if you go down here, you'll see fund transfer expense. All this represents is any balances that are in the clubs at the end of the year. We simply roll that over at June 30 to the same club for July 1 of the next year. So it's just an in and out transaction. That's why the amounts are exactly equal there. Our largest expense item, obviously, is salaries. At this point in time, since the contract negotiations with teachers are ongoing, the salaries number only represents increases to non-union personnel at this point in time. Also represents the expectation that we will in fact have a principal, we have an ED, a full-time ED, paraprofessional addition, technology addition. That's what is driving the salary number there. When we finalize the contract, obviously we'll come back with those new numbers. We'll have to look at the budget and see if there's any adjustments that need to be made. But this is the best information that we have at this point in time. On the payroll taxes and fringe benefit line, you can see that nets out to about a 6% increase here, basically based on our health programs, insurance programs, and things like that. You can see some of the increases that came through here. 4% on the health care, 14% on the dental, 5% for vision, and then there was no increase on the short-term and long-term disability that we offer people. On the professional development front, this represents 2 things. This represents when the school sends faculty and staff off to a professional development program. This also represents tuition reimbursement that we provide to teachers who are doing additional higher ed classes in pursuit of a certification. We're projecting more of both in the coming year. So we're making investments is really what it comes down to. Instructional supplies and equipment, you're going to see this number is going up. What I will say is Dr. DeMello instituted a very, very good process this year with a completely bottoms-up process. So the way the budget was arrived at is we didn't take that the art department spent X last year and we're going to spend 1.01X this year. That was not the way the budget worked. It really worked with what do you need, based on everything that you've got in the closet, what do you need to run the art department next year? That was every department went through that exercise for them, in the textbooks and things like that, and did a really zero-based build-up of the budget. If we do have an increase, we're offering a number of new classes, which are the drivers of the increase in instructional supplies and equipment. Student programs and expenses, again, we talked about the income side of that. This is the expense side of it, things like prom, senior activities and things like that. This is the other side of that equation. On the nutrition expense side, again, we talked about the income side of the equation. This is just the expense side. Same thing with athletics. The student transportation number, so again, on the income side of student transportation represents the income that we get in for the regional buses. That's really the only income that we get in as it relates to buses. The transportation expenses represent the regional buses, represent the athletic buses, represent the field trip buses, so that's why that number is obviously higher than the number. Our lease CAM and taxes, lease common area maintenance and taxes, you'll see that that's only going up 1%. I lost my line. That's only going up 1%. Our lease does have accelerators in it, and taxes are taxes, which we have no control over. Then you come to facilities. You can see the things that go into facilities. This includes copy, this includes janitorial services, cleaning, and things like that. Our cleaning contract is out for bid, and we're getting that back, but we're budgeting a modest increase on that. Again, you see a 5% increase, you got to recognize what the numbers are. The numbers that drive our budget are tuition and our salary expenses, and our fringe benefits are the numbers that drive our expenses. Utility, actually a modest decrease that we're forecasting there. On IT, we're forecasting an increase here. If you remember at last month's meeting, Dr. Mello presented a number of infrastructure investments that we're going to be making to prepare the school, position the school to be in a position for one-to-one at some point in the future. Doesn't make any sense to put devices in people's hands if we don't have the bandwidth and the connectivity in place. We're confident that the bandwidth and connectivity that we're looking at would be transportable to any new location as well, so it would be something that we would be able to take with us. Auditor expenses, obviously we're mandated to have an annual audit as a charter school and file that information. Our legal expenses, so projecting actually higher legal expenses in the coming year from where we're expecting to end this year. And that relates to the fact that our lawsuit has not resolved itself at this point in time. We're expecting the expenses in this calendar year, or in this fiscal year. Given the timing and where things stand, we think in fact if you end up going to trial, those will be in the following year. And then additional expenses as it relates to labor law support is the other thing that's driving additional legal expenses there. A labor attorney that we have on collective bargaining and things like that.
Question on, where does the reimbursement show up? Is that
It actually,
number a net number?
that's a net number. Yep.
Or actually legal expenses are even
Our legal expenses are even higher than that, so we've been receiving a reimbursement because we have insurance policies, so we're suing them, they're suing us, and our insurance policy covers part of that. Other operating costs, panoramas, survey tool, board memberships and things like that are what are going into this number. Some of these other operating costs last year related to search firms that we brought in, the outside climate survey and things like that, so we're projecting a decrease in that. And on the insurance expense side, reasonably steep increase there. Again, general liability insurance going up, workers' comp, cyber insurance that we have, all of those are going up. We do go out for bid on those, but that's what we've got back at this point in time. And then depreciation expenses, and depreciation expenses are not a cash expense. The idea is if we buy a laptop, for the sake of argument, for $2,000 in cash, we only recognize an expense of, for the sake of argument, $400 each year over the laptop we do 3 years. So we represent, let's say it costs $2,100 in cash. We would recognize a cost of $700 each of the next 3 years as we depreciate the asset. That's what we're going to do with that. So it's a non-cash expense, but we do recognize that. That's going down because the number of assets that we have and therefore depreciate at this point in time. So that number will be going down. We will be making some additional capital expenditures. We're going to start upgrading some of the classrooms and upgrade a couple of desks, in a couple of classrooms, and we'll be doing that on a rolling cycle. Those will be depreciated over a number of years as well, but net, we're going to have a lower depreciation expense going forward. What it all means at the end of the day, we're projecting a surplus for next year at this point in time of $261,000 is what we're projecting as a surplus. Again, $250,000, that's nothing to sneeze at, but let's put it in perspective of what the size of the organization is. We're a $12 million organization. We're projecting a 2% surplus We should be working on pretty small margins, that's a pretty small margin, and we need to figure out how to get our collective bargaining expenses in there as well.
Is that 2%?
That's 2%.
And what was our surplus the last couple of years?
So the surplus that we're projecting for this year, and again, it's principally driven off of the fact that the legal expenses were a lot lower than they were. And we're projecting a $500,000 surplus is what we're projecting for this year.
Okay, 556.
Yep.
Well, we have unfilled positions too.
Again, we didn't have a principal for the whole year, and we had other unfilled positions. So those are the contributors to the surplus.
And then what happens to that money? Just rolls over?
That money would roll over and be available for the school to do whatever it needed to do with it. So again, it's like if we ever wanted to move to a one-to-one program, obviously there's a pretty substantial cost associated with that. That would be money that would be available for something like that. We've also talked about here a large chunk of money in escrow at this point related to the lawsuit for common area maintenance charges. And if we prevail on that, that would be money that would be available for other purposes. If we don't prevail, we put that money aside and we won't have any impact on the sewer expense that money. But we cannot go to check. So that's our preliminary budget at this point in time. What I'd like to do is do a motion to approve the budget. I'd like everybody to recognize that as we move forward in collective bargaining negotiations, we'll have to reopen the budget and adjust it at that point in time. This represents all the information that we have in this juncture in time.
Is there any discussion or question?
Do we have the capital purchases for next year?
I don't know it off the top of my
It's
head.
just baked into the
It's baked into the depreciation number, right? So you look at the things that are dropping off the depreciation number, you look at the things that are being coming on the depreciation schedule, and that depreciation is going down. No, it's not big. So I think the classrooms are like $8,000. Some of the technology expenses that we talk about, not all the technology expenses to upgrade the infrastructure are on the technology expense line. Some of those will be capitalized as well.
From our discussion of the number of students, is it 996? We'll go to 966 eventually. Are we going to have 996 next year?
We only get compensated on the 966.
Right, but that's a teacher's worth of kids, at least above.
That's correct. But we're through the magic of scheduling and things like that, we're able to have those additional kids in here without needing additional teachers to support them. What the idea is behind that, and it's giving us the ability to balance out some of the disparities that we've got in class sizes, is what that additional 30 students is allowing us to do. But to be very clear, we only get compensated on 966.
I wouldn't say that's through magic.
Hard work.
No, I mean, there are teachers who have very big classrooms, especially in middle school. Not classrooms, classes of people. Some, I don't think it's magic.
Other questions?
Just a question on salaries, given we're in a union negotiation. What was this based on, the number we budgeted for?
The number is based on 0 for the union and 2% increases for the rest of the organization.
2% increase for all the teaching staff.
No,
Not the union. 0 for the union is what's baked into here. So for the department heads and for the administration, it's 2% increase.
Okay.
That's what he's saying.
As Hans said, we will come back when we have the numbers.
Okay. And that coming back could be between now and whenever.
It could be a different model, yes.
All right. Any other questions? Anyone would like to
I'd
motion
like to make a
to?
motion to accept the budget as presented.
Second by Allison. All in favor? Those opposed, motion passes. Thank you, Tom. And Finance Committee.
And thanks to Dr. Mel and Nancy for the job pulling all this together.
All right, we have left governance and education. We are at 8:20. So go right ahead.
Okay, so for governance, I actually have 3 items, but I'll go through the easy one first. In your packets is a proposed meeting calendar for the next school year. And what's done here is Thursdays, the 4th Thursday of every month unless it falls on a holiday or school vacation week, in which case it's the 3rd Thursday. So this is just out here for everyone.
What about January? That's the 3rd. January 28th school vacation.
No idea.
28th.
I think you may want to move that. That's why this is out here, because, you know. Oh, I see what you're saying. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we just don't.
Also, the November meetings on my birthday, you can only get special note of that.
The 19th. It's all right.
So do we want to move to January? You know what, the January meeting actually probably shouldn't even be there because it's the annual planning meeting.
Thursday.
Yeah. We probably should be different to stay all together. Yeah. Maybe we should talk about that. Yeah, that did work out well. Do we want to have it just be the 23rd or the 30th?
Yeah. Just go ahead and schedule it now.
Yeah, let's schedule it now.
The holiday,
The
Thanks,
18th.
Mike.
So the little gray things that didn't copy all that well are the, so the 18th.
Let's do the 30th. We should
Do the 30th?
yeah.
January
Yeah.
30th.
January 30th.
Yeah.
January 30th.
That would be another annual one.
What?
And
That's
you-
annual plan.
Annual planning meeting to move to that Saturday, like the 8 to 2. With that all goes.
Okay.
And then just the graduation is noted on there for this year. Okay? So that's the easy one. We don't need to vote.
No, this is just logistics.
Put these on the calendar for the school.
Okay.
In your packets, I didn't send this around, but in your packets you have a board on track trial piece of paper, and this is for our free pilot of the board on track system. And I've talked extensively with them about how to get it kicked off for us, particularly given that our board members have spent a lot of time in board meetings in the last 2 weeks, and so to try to streamline it for everyone as much as possible. So the recommendation for us is that we do take advantage during this trial period of all of their assessments, which actually gives us a lot of data and gives us some benchmark data compared to what they've got as well. And then after we get the assessments of how the board we self think we're doing on all of these different measures, then we can roll out sort of the pilot program and really talk about what the little pieces of the membership that we want to do. So in the next week, you will be receiving an email, and it's requested that you will complete these surveys. Each of these, it's 11 surveys, and they all take like 2 minutes each. So you can do them in like 2 to 3 minutes is what they said. Well, she wrote 3 to 5, but she told me on the phone it was 2 to 3.
More like an hour.
You can like go and do them in different. You don't have to do it all at once. It's saved. You can do half, 2 questions, and it saves and comes back. So the hope is that everyone can complete these assessments by Wednesday, April 29th, because then I'll meet with a smaller group that first week in May, and then at the May 11th governance committee to talk about how we're going to roll out. Okay.
So we'll get an email from at Board on Track.
You will get an email from Board on Track. I'm going to give them all your Amsa emails, so it'll just go to your.
Thank you.
Okay?
All right.
Okay, so the last thing is the SMART goals for 2015. Which also have two. So we talk. Are you emails on Tuesday?
Is this one that says 2015 priorities?
Yes, it says 2015 priorities. So the 2015 priorities are what we collectively agreed on at the January annual planning meeting, where we want to spend our time and effort as a board. And some of these are sort of school things, and some of them are board things, but it was just the overall, and this was directionally where we all wanted to spend our time. What we have done in governance is we really focused on sort of these big categories, the big categories, the ones that were 15% or more, and identified specific goals. So the 3 priorities that don't necessarily have goals written to them, but doesn't mean they aren't priorities, are the academic success, college and career readiness, and innovation and dissemination. Because we felt those were really school-driven initiatives, and that the board is just supposed to make sure that these things are happening. We say they're a very important thing that we want the schools to be doing, but for what the board is going to be doing, the 2015 annual goals objectives are on this page. So these are the drafts that we've put together. So same big categories that we had before. Organizational viability is a big one. These are the 4 objectives that we, as a board, felt that was important for us to do. Faculty engagement is another organizational viability issue. This was adding the surveys and then developing a feedback loop with the surveys so that there's some mechanism for two-way communication to happen with the board and the ED for both parents, faculty, and actually just parents and faculty. It's the students that would be within the school. Number 3, faithfulness to the charter. So we had a lot of discussion over this, right? We've been talking about how to clarify the vision and mission statement and how to do a strategic plan. We recognized that it is extremely difficult to come up with a strategic plan at this point in time and how to do this. But we thought we could make good progress creating sort of an articles of design. So it's a document that would sort of lay out what are the sort of key design principles, really based on the original charter application, all the founding documents. So this is a continuation of some of the discussion that we started in January. And that might be something that would really help to clarify a lot of the bigger uncertainties, I think, that we still.
In the discussion, it felt like a breakthrough.
It did.
We've been, kind of whacking our head against this strategic plan, strategic thinking thing. And so we got this one of them. I want to thank Sarah especially for helping us.
Isn't this a term used in the charter, or the D's to talk about key elements of the charter?
Design elements.
Design elements.
We came up with articles of design.
She came up with articles of design.
Term of art that we invented.
A term of art that we invented, but we know what it means, right? So,
But I do think that will unblock us in terms of strategic thinking.
yeah.
And I think in addition to that, part of the discussion was that there's been a continual discussion of you're not following the charter, or what does the charter mean? And there's a whole continuum of thought as to what the charter means. And I think this document, once we produce it, will really help and take that continuum of thought and bring it down closer to say that yes, we are following the spirit and the meaning of the charter, but we're not following letter for letter the original document that was designed 10 years ago.
Okay. So have you guys thought about how that's going to get done? Is that going to be a task force, or is that governance committee that's going to put those together?
We didn't get that far.
No, I was good. No,
But thanks for the encouragement.
I was
I'm
just
sorry.
going to ask you to.
Thank you for the encouragement.
I think actually Sarah has taken an initial rough draft of that. I think we that in the summer timeframe, you're talking about taking the next step in governance. Am I remembering that conversation?
We did. We said we could do some of that governance, but we also could do it as a separate task force.
I can see it. We didn't clarify that. I can possibly see it.
We were so
excited that we came up with that.
You know, we just left.
After a year and a half of trying to figure out how do we bring
It was one of those litigation moments, you had to be there. It was like, woo, the light bulb came on.
Right. We have been trying to figure out how to do that strategic planning, given all the uncertainties that we have, and certain things that we can do, so.
No, it's a great idea because you can see this as being an evolving thing over time.
Exactly.
And not only,
key elements.
and not only not only does it show what the charter, help explain and give clarity what the charter is supposed to mean, but to somebody who's an outsider, whether it's a new parent who's coming in or an auditor coming in or something like that,
Yes.
that you could show, examples and so forth. So it's very good.
It's supposed to be, like a small document, not like having to reach 120 page charter application.
Well, then probably our state governance committee, because if it goes to a task force, then we get
All right. And then the last one was board development, and almost all of these are actually rollovers from the prior year. I think there's just a few little things that were added, which was just the quarterly update of newsletters, which is something that Jeff piloted this year, and the grant tickets. So.
This last one on the board attendance at key events, is there a mechanism for notifying us when these things are coming up?
There is. At the beginning of the school year, we get a list of sort of all the events for the year.
Okay.
So yeah, you would have seen that. But when the long-term sort of all the events for the year are planned out, then we get it in September.
Pauline, does this include,
Are those posted anywhere for
Activities.
somebody who may have lost it?
Somebody.
We'll get you a new
Rick might have
copy.
lost it.
Oh, we got
Could you send that?
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
we can figure out a way to share that.
Pauline, does this include the things when we had the charter renewal and there were recommendations of things that the board?
That's under organizational viability, 1D.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Because, one was things we absolutely must do just to keep
Yeah.
the doors open.
Thank you.
And the others were all, make sure to have more strategic level. Okay, are there any other questions?
Board governance.
So do we agree that these are the goals? Because if we do, these are going up on the website as the goals. That's what we're going to measure ourselves against.
So it's the second and third page.
Yeah, the second and third page, yeah. The actual goals.
So, is it worth reflecting the others, even if as you say, it's mostly the school that is doing those?
We're going to measure ourselves at the end of the year on whether we were able to accomplish against these. So I think if we put those two categories with no goals on, there's no real reason to.
Yeah, because the goals have to be measurable. What we agreed on those things is going to go into these goals for the next year.
I think it wouldn't hurt to vote on it.
Yeah.
So then we're in agreement.
Those are goals. It seems like we're doing them.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'd like to make a motion. These are our goals for 2015.
Roger seconds. All in favor? Those opposed? The motion passes.
That's it for governance.
All right.
15 minutes.
And do we have an education committee update?
We do not, but I can just talk for 5 minutes if you want. I don't want you to get off track.
No,
No.
no.
Thank you for that offer.
Anytime.
So any items to request for next meeting?
Well, the enrollment policy. The survey,
We need to make some ground between now and then on the
We're
survey.
going to do a survey update.
Survey update.
Whatever that means.
Survey plan.
Do we have to do anything with the accountability plan since the deadline's June 5th?
we don't have to do anything. We vote on the final plan in July. The July meeting. That's why this July meeting is actually pretty important,
Okay.
because there's the accountability plan and the annual survey. We'll have to do it in July. It's July 23rd. So sometimes we skip the July meeting, but this year we're going to do that.
For a little while.
We always talk about skipping it.
Yeah, we always talk about that.
It's one of our goals. It's one of our goals. One of our goals.
So easy to measure.
Eventually, we have to have a real that July meeting, but we definitely need it this year.
So, Chris, are we supposed to, as a board, have completed our contributions by next meeting?
You wanted it by May 6th?
Yeah.
So we're not going to do fundraising? Well, we can do it.
You'll do the total by then?
It's part of fundraising.
What date is the, so yes, I'll do an update on the meeting in May, yes.
I don't have a date.
Chris, will those?
So we're going to ask the board to make their commitments in the next
Yeah.
Yeah, he wants that by the board.
Will those be public?
meeting. Individual, no.
Okay.
This
Board
one's
total
named
will be public.
twice in the past.
You'll take-
But you want to be able to say 100% of the board contributed X number of dollars to be able to roll that out.
Yes.
All right. If there is no other agenda request for next meeting, then we entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Motion